In this video we shall talk about test plan sections using the example. If you prefer a more classical approach with slides, please refer to the previous video. We shall begin with a disclaimer. It is almost impossible nowadays to find some real production test plan in open sources like internet or something like that, because no customer will be happy if his project will be exposed to the public. And so we are using the specifically created for educational purposes test plan, but it is as close to real as possible. As you can see, we are here using Confluence tool, and here we shall review the sections of test plan. Okay, title page here, so nothing special about it. Special sections start there. First of all, we shall talk about project scope and main goals. This section represents something from our requirements, but it is in a more condensed, specific form. It emphasizes those ideas we absolutely shall keep in our mind when we are working with our project. And these ideas are representing the project from the quality point of view. Requirements to be tested. If we click these links, let's do it, we may see that the proper section of requirements will open. But what is this section about? This section is about these requirements and how shall we test them. In more complex, sophisticated projects, there may be some tables, charts, matrices, and so on. But even here we have the list of requirements, so we may click the link anytime, see the requirement, return back, and we here see what kind of levels of functional testing we use to test these requirements. The next section is even more important. Requirements not to be tested. Why not? Because there are some requirements. For instance, let's see what's in System characteristic 1. The application should be a console one. Yes, of course, why not? We shall develop it as a console application, so it's by design. And we need no tests to verify that. And again, this section says that the application should be developed with proper version of PHP. Okay, we use that version of PHP and no special tests required here. So this section represents those requirements that we have no and will not have any tests for. And we also should list such requirements for customer not to be surprised in a negative way. He may think, why there are no tests for such requirements? Because. And each and every time we should absolutely mention the reason here. The next section is strategy and approach. It is subdivided into several subsections. This subsection tells us how to get the quality and get the results, get the goals in the best way. The more complex and the more sophisticated project we have, the more details we have here. For now, it's just an educational project, it's a simple one, and we only have some basic ideas here. And we also have a list of functional testing levels we use to test the application. The next section is criteria. In this particular case, we have a list of the most common, the most basic criteria in software testing, like acceptance criteria, testing start criteria, pause, resumption, and finish criteria. The more complex project we have, the more specific criteria we may see here. So, for now, it's enough for such simple project. The next section is resources. Here we mention software resources, hardware resources, personnel, time, finances, and so on. Once again, we absolutely must have schedule here, if we have a long project. Usually we need some resource for specific time, and if that time comes and we do not have the resource, it's bad. We have to stop and wait. But if we gain the resource and then it only waits and we waste money for nothing. So any specific software, hardware or other resource we shall have at the proper time. Schedule. We were mentioning schedule a couple of seconds ago. Schedule is good for every person because it shows when and what I should do. Here in this tool it's rather simple to add some events, to subscribe to some events and so on. It even may email user notifications, so it's great, and each member of the project has his own schedule where he sees his own tasks and common tasks for the whole team. Roles and responsibilities. Now, the more complex project we are working on the more roles and more unusual responsibilities we have here. For example, we only have senior developer with rather expected tasks for senior developer. But as we can see, he is also participate in requirements testing. That's maybe not so common for a developer, but we only have 2 team members here. Risk evaluation. Yes, each and every project has its own risks. So we shall mention these risks. Here are the specific risks. And for each risk we have some ideas on how to foresee this risk is coming and how to deal with it. And these countermeasures should absolutely be prepared in advance. It's not good to act when the incident has happened. It's good to act before it comes. Thus, we may even avoid risks at all. Documentation section represents all the documentation we have. Okay, here we see requirements, we may click the link, we may see the requirements, we may also see other documentation here, and for each new person on the project, it's good to look through such list, to refer to the responsible person, to see when the deadline is, to see what the time period of creation is. It's useful not to tell all this verbally, but to just give this URL to a new person and say, look through this, read this documentation, get acquainted with the project. Metrics. The last but not least. In criteria section, let's click it. You may see that these ideas have links here. These points have links here. Once we click the link, metrics section opens, because each criterion is good when it's backed up with a metric, with some formula that is calculated automatically, that has some legend how to understand the formula. A legend is rather important, because without such a legend, if we see some value, we do not know how to interpret that value. But with legend, we see, is it good, is it not good, and so on. And usually these metrics are calculated automatically by some software. In addition to such lists, we may use something like Jira, a well-known project management tool, and we some lists of items. Here we see another schedule. It's good, it's convenient, it's simple, so why not to use it? And sometimes we may also use such well-known classical approach as Word documents. Why not? It's not common nowadays, but it's not so bad as it's spoken about sometimes. So here's the same text you have seen in the browser, but it may be presented this way. And many tools now, like Confluence and so on, usually allow us to export such texts into PDF files, so it's convenient. It doesn't really matter what tool do you have. In critical situation we may even have paper, why not? But the main idea is to have the plan, because without a plan there is chaos, there is always chaos. With a plan there may be also chaos, but it's not so disastrous. And so the project becomes more and more effective and efficient, we work well, customer is happy, and we are happy too.